Welcome to the Hotel Moment Podcast, presented by Revenate, the podcast where we talk to leaders in the hospitality industry. If you're looking for trends, perspectives, and stories from leaders in travel and hospitality, you're in the right place.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Hotel Moment Podcast. My name is Karen Stevens and I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Revenate. This is my very first podcast, so I'm very excited to be joined today with a heavy hitter in the industry, one of my favorite people, Noreen Henry, who is the Chief Revenue Officer of Sojern. Welcome, Noreen.
Thank you. You are too kind with that introduction. Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Absolutely. It's amazing. And I have to say, for everyone listening, it's great because Noreen and I have known each other for a long time. So we actually used to work together. She's my former boss and continues to be one of my mentors. So when I think of leadership in hospitality and women in particular, strong women, I always think of Noreen. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Karen.
Sure. So topic today, here we are in the middle of summer, 2022. And it's been really interesting to see the trends happening out there. So I think, we had kind of a slow start to the year, Q1, January and February is still pretty soft for hotels. And then in March, we just saw things start to really spike up. ADR was already clipping 2019 levels. And now we're seeing even RevPAR start to peak over what we saw before. So all of the early predictors, they were saying it's going to be the end of next year before this happens. But what we're seeing is that strong growth and recovery across the board. Yet, at the same time, the storm is a-brewing. So there's a lot of talk out there about recession, interest rates are going up. So really want to dig in with Noreen on these juicy topics. But before we get to that,
right?
Never a dull day. It's like, what the heck is going on? But before we get into that, I have some questions for Noreen just to warm us up.
Bring them on.
All right, here we go. So what I'd like to know is, what was your very first job in the travel industry? And do you remember your first day? What was that like?
Oh, wow. Yes. So my first job was with Sabre. So I worked in product on the travel agency side. So building products for travel agents. And I was actually working on a product that was about bringing video and images. That tells you how old I am, to the travel agent desktop. And the first day was amazing because I thought the opportunity to work in travel was like, I never dreamed that I could do that. And I was just pinching myself that it was the opportunity to work in the travel industry.
Wow, that is so cool. Imagine that, video content being important.
I know,
amazing.
right?
Yeah. So what is the most uplifting moment in your career so far? So I know you've done a lot, seen a lot. Can you think of one moment that has been the most uplifting for you?
So yeah, the things that impact me the most that I go, oh, wow, that was a day that I'll never forget. It was when we were with Travelocity, and it was a travel partner conference, and it was in New Orleans. And so we were one of the first ones after Katrina to come back to the city and figure out, hey, how do we help stimulate business again? And one of the things we did was we did a volunteer day before the partner conference at one of the schools. And I think you were probably part of that. You remember?
I was there, yeah.
We redid their whole playground. Yeah. We just did some amazing things to just renovate that school. And the kids were gone on a field trip while we were doing this. And when they came back, their eyes were like amazed. They had these new basketball courts and everything else. And so it was a very, very rewarding day. And we were doing that side by side with our partners. And so it was just a terrific way to connect with our partners.
That is such a great moment. I'm glad you brought that up because that was a fantastic moment. And you're right, it was so great because it was all the leaders across the airlines and our hotel companies and all of our great partners. And we were out there digging in the dirt, painting walls, tearing out ceilings. So right? That's an awesome moment. Yes, awesome moment. Cool. Okay, so here's some more of it on a personal level. What is your most striking experience so far in terms of a holiday or a hotel or a place you've been? Because I know you love to travel. So what's your favorite so far? That's hard, I know.
That is really hard. There's so many different ones. But I'll tell you, one of the ones that was most impactful for me is we did a family trip to Ireland. And it was a trip with my children and with my parents. And my mom's from Ireland. And so it was a chance for us to experience Ireland through her eyes. We met her family over there. We toured the beautiful scenery. My children connected with their cousins and all wanted to go to college there afterwards. Like, it was just one of those, like, this is where I'm from. and you
Yeah.
just connect it with the people. And they're so lovely people in Ireland. Like, oh my gosh, they are just so warm and welcoming. So yeah, that's probably my best
Ah,
experience.
that's a cool one. Okay, I've got two more. This one's easy.
Okay.
Any celebrities? Have you met any celebrities in your travel or in your job?
Uh, John Stamos in New
Ooh,
York. Not
okay.
really meeting. Like he was in the lobby, but I had the note and he thought it was cool. So that was probably one. Oh, and Phil from Amazing Race. So Phil came
Oh,
and spoke.
yeah.
If you remember that? And so
Yes.
yeah, spent time with him, and he autographed books, and yeah, it was a very cool experience with him.
Oh, that's another great memory. What a great TV show that was.
Right?
Travelocity sponsored. Yeah,
You bet.
amazing. Amazing. Okay, last question. Who are the women at work or in the industry that you have been most inspired by?
Oh, there are many women that have inspired me, but I'll tell you. So probably one of the most influential was Michelle Peluso. So Michelle was the CEO at Travelocity. Young, vibrant, energetic, brilliant, smart, relatable. Like she's the first one that just like really walked the halls and sat down and wanted to understand your perspective on things. And she just connected with employees like I've never seen before. And so I always hold her in high esteem and try and go, oh, what would Michelle do? And try and channel Michelle whenever I'm trying
Yes.
to make tough decisions. So definitely
That's so
Michelle.
I'm so glad you said Michelle. She is an amazing person. So that is great. Okay. Thank you so much, Noreen. Let's get to the topic at hand. We talked a little bit about the snapshot of where we are. So what are you seeing at Sojern? I know you have a ton of data coming in there. What are you seeing on your side?
Yeah, so we've got data, and then of course we talk to our partners all the times. And I will tell you, yes, there's lots of concerns about, hey, what's going on in the economy, but everyone's pretty cautiously optimistic. So, I get that investors are concerned and, people are tightening belts, but, travel seems to be bucking the trend a bit. So Q3 bookings in particular are very strong, particularly in leisure. So we primarily focus on the leisure segment. So I can tell you from our data, Q3 bookings are very strong. Some markets are starting to cool down a little bit, but most of them are continuing to, go aggressively, and you're seeing them meet or exceed 2019 levels. And so that's looking great. Q4, surprisingly, is still relatively strong as well. And so, we're seeing marketers make sure that they are getting in front of consumers as they start to figure out their plans for the fall and figure out their plans for the holidays. But we are still seeing cautious optimism out there.
That's amazing. No, it's so great, and certainly everything that the hospitality industry has been through in the last couple of years. It's great to see that strong recovery, and now it's almost like there's too much demand. So now
Right.
it's all about how do you capture the right demand at the right price and make sure that you're maximizing your direct channels. And I know that that's something that Sojern does wonderfully for hotels, right? So helping them capture those bookings.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the other trends I thought would be interesting to share was as I was looking through our data for this, it's a trend I did not expect, Karen. So we're actually seeing longer lengths of stay. So my theory was, okay, people are getting concerned about, I don't want to use the R word. People are concerned about the economy and
Yeah.
tightening of belts. And I thought what people would do is say, okay, I have to take this trip. I've been locked up for too long. You've got all this pent up demand. They still want to travel. But I thought what they would do is say, it's pretty expensive. Airlines are expensive. Hotels are expensive. I'm going to shorten my trip, but I'm still going to get away. But that's not what we're seeing. We're actually seeing them lengthen their trip. And so when I dig into it, what our theory is, it's this whole blending of business and leisure that, we've all been talking about with, everybody being able to be flexible with their work and work remote. And I'm an example of this. So we had a trip planned to Italy back in 2020. It was our trip of a lifetime. And of course, it got stopped because of the pandemic. We finally took that trip in May of this year. And it was originally a 2-week trip. And of course, there was, we did all the tourist things in those 2 weeks, but we extended an extra week. And I worked remotely for a week in a small, little, wonderful beach town in Italy. And it was this amazing combination of, yes, I'm already over there, and I'm now going to extend this and find a way to blend the two sides of my life. So I think there's more and more of that going on. I'd be curious
Yeah.
if you're starting to do that and how you are looking at your summer vacations.
Yeah, the bleisure, as we like to call it. So,
That's right.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have kids, so I'm actually waiting to the fall when things mellow out a little bit, and then I'm going to Hawaii. And yeah, I will make that bleisure for sure because And I did get back from Europe. We had actually a sales incentive trip that got, we had a president's club. That got pushed back for 2 years. So we had an amazing time, but man, everything was full. Flights were full, hotels were full. And it was great. It was great to have that atmosphere around us. It's like it's
Right.
back.
Right.
So that was
Like I'm
fantastic.
enjoying that it's back. And I don't personally mind the full planes because it means business is back and you get that whole
Business is
energy.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
100%. Well, I know we don't want to use the R word,
Yes.
but, and I know we want to be cautiously optimistic, but what are you recommending that our hotel partners do just to kind of hedge their bets? Because, I think if anything, we've learned that things can change quickly. So what do you think the best thing that they can do to kind of prepare in the event that things are not as rosy as we hope they are?
So I think what they need to do is take a page from what I call the Survive and Thrive Pandemic Playbook. So hoteliers got really smart during the pandemic. So they did a couple things to really kind of leverage technology. They leaned into direct bookings. So we really saw the shift to direct bookings. Consumers wanted to, it was kind of a catalyst because of the pandemic. People went to the websites and mobile to learn more about what are the safety protocols, what are the cancellation policies, et cetera. And then hotels really captured that. They made sure they had a great experience and that they were able to capture those direct bookings. So I think the more hotels do to make sure that they are continuing to lean into direct is probably a really good thing. The other thing we saw them do was optimize for mobile. So again, our data shows that there is a shift. Actually, I'll quote a stat for you. So direct booking searches for hotels increased from 14% in June of 2019 to 24% in June of 2022. So it's a 10 percentage point increase in people shopping on mobile. So it was really important for hoteliers to optimize their mobile experience so that people had a good experience. That the bookings didn't go up as much. They did increase, but people are shopping on mobile. They are getting inspired. They're dreaming. They're figuring out what they want to do. They're planning on it. And then the other thing, which is near and dear to our heart, is they really started to leverage data to improve their business. And so, for us at Sojern, we're all about our data. We've got rich travel intent, and we leverage that to make sure that we are putting the right consumer in front of the advertising for our clients and driving people direct. And so, leveraging our data for providing insights into what's going on in the marketplace, as well as leveraging their own first-party data, really help them optimize. And I got to tell you, data, it provided insight into that these trends are so different than normal. Normally you would plan a marketing campaign for Q1 that was, focused on spring break, and Q2 was focused on summer travel. But during the pandemic, those trends just kind of went out the window. So
100%.
you had to look at data to go, what's the right thing? How do I change my messaging? How do I be very flexible and nimble and be able to adapt to what's going on? And I think as we look at, the future and what the economy brings, I think it's going to make sense for them to leverage that same toolkit as they go forward.
Absolutely. And that's the same thing. Obviously, Revenate, we are powered by data as well. So we have all of the first party data from bookings in the hotels, and we can ask hotels to use that data to get more customers like that and leverage that data. And what we saw a lot during the pandemic as well is you don't know what segment can come into your hotel, right? If international travel is shut down, how do you target the nearer guests? How are you able to be flexible when things change? How are you able to tell your customers when you're back up and running? So it is all about data and being able to leverage that, not only to drive conversion and direct bookings, but also to make sure that when your guests get there, they are having the best experience, because it is that trip that you've been waiting to have for 2 years and you just want it to be perfect, right? So yeah, that's a great tip.
I also think it's about, your loyal customers, staying in front of your loyal customers and repeat bookings. Like during, when people are going, okay, where do I spend my money? If they've known they've had a great experience at your place before, they're likely to want to come back. So it's also making sure that you stay in front of those loyal customers and make sure you bring them back.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. We're coming up on budget season. As you said, it's a little, let's see what happens, right? Because the rule book got thrown out. It used to be like clockwork, we go through the different seasons. Yeah. So as hoteliers come up on this, it'll be interesting to see. But what other technologies do you think that hotels should be adopting out there? We got a lot of, in addition to record high occupancy and bookings, we have staff shortages all over the place and, other issues. So as hoteliers are starting to think about their toolkit, how do you think about, the technology that you're seeing out there and how they can leverage that at their properties?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Our hoteliers are very resilient. They've first you get the pandemic thrown at them, then okay, business starts to come back, and you've got high occupancy and labor shortages. And the more they can leverage technology to help them through this, the more that you can automate, the more that you can leverage experts to be able to help support you on some of this stuff, the less than your staff has to do. So I think you're going to see more and more of that. We obviously saw a lot of that going on during the pandemic. They're figuring out who's the partners to work with and who's going to help them best as they go through this. So I think the more they can leverage partners and technology, the better off they're going to be for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, great. Any other tidbits to share with our audience? Any other tips and tricks and advice as we come out of this awesome summer and head into the fall?
So I think the one other thing I would say is, at least from a marketing perspective, I would recommend, that the hotels that we saw not just survive, but thrive during the pandemic, really leveraged an always on methodology. So they didn't go dark whenever things got rough. They continued to advertise because there are consumers that are out there shopping, and you just need to get in front of the right consumer. So again, leverage that data. Keep your messaging always out there. People need to know you're open and that you're open for future travel. So that would be one of my recommendations for sure.
I love that. Keep communicating. Keep letting your guests know. I mean, we saw a lot of hotels that were closed use that opportunity to gather preferences from their best guests so that they knew how to market them when they were back open. So I think that's fantastic.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Noreen. You've been a great first guest.
Thank you. And let's all remain cautiously optimistic. Continue to focus on what you can control and make sure that you're staying in front of all the trends so that we can capitalize on this. But
I love it. I appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts. And, that's the end of this first episode of Hotel Moment. Once again, Noreen is the Chief Revenue Officer of Sojern. And to learn more about Sojern, you can go to www.sojern.com. Thank you, Noreen.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Hotel Moment podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe for more content. For more information, head to hotelmomentpodcast.com. The Hotel Moment podcast is presented by Revenate and produced by Make More Media.